With the year officially coming to an end, it's time to talk about our favorite movies from 2022. And for this video, we're going to be doing just that. We're going to look at my top 10 films from the past year and why I liked them so much. Now, I do want to say right at the beginning that there are a lot of movies this year that I never had the opportunity to see, many of which I really wanted to see, such as The Fabelmans and Devotion, some of the newer ones that recently came out. I haven't had the opportunity to watch those. Many of those probably would have made it into my top 10 had I seen them, but because I haven't, I'm not going to be including them in this video. So this is really a top 10 movies that I actually saw. So there are plenty of films that I'm sure you might not see in this list, and if you don't, it's likely because either I haven't seen it yet, or I have and I maybe didn't like it quite as much as you did. But to get us all started, I actually wanted to mention a couple of honorable mentions that I really debated putting into the top 10, but weren't able to quite make the cut. The first of these is going to be Violent Night, which was the new Santa Claus action movie that came out at the end of this year. I really enjoyed David Harbour's take on the character, and it was kind of just a fun turn your brain off action flick, but it got a little bit gory for me. It got a little bit extreme compared to what I typically like to see, and for some of those reasons it doesn't quite make it to the top 10. You also had this year, gave us a new Scream movie. Big fan of the Scream franchise. I really love it. It's some of my favorite horror films. This one did a wonderful job at bringing us back to that kind of franchise and everything that it's given us before, but it's not something that really blew me away, and it's not one that I liked better than what we've gotten previously. So it was a great return, it was a fun movie, but it's not one that I thought was outstanding and worth the top 10 spot. Next up on our honorable mentions is going to be The Bad Guys. This is a DreamWorks movie that came out and was really a lot of fun. It's a heist film, it's an animated film with some great characters, and I really enjoyed it. The final honorable mention that I want to talk about is Nope. This is Jordan Peele's film, and while it's not really a horror film, it did have some nice suspense to it. But my biggest issue with this one is it just kind of feels a little bit slow at times. For a lot of the movie, there's not really much happening, but I did enjoy the fact that the movie didn't go the way that I had expected it to, and it gave us a lot of twists and turns. So with those honorable mentions out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in our top 10 films of the year.
All right. When's the murder mystery start?
In 10th place is going to be Rian Johnson's Glass Onion. Now, I'm a big fan of murder mysteries, and there were actually several of them that came out this year, and I enjoyed watching just about every single one of them, but this one definitely stands out as being the best. It continues the legacy that was started with Knives Out, and while I didn't like this one quite as much as I liked the first one, it was still very, very entertaining. There's a great cast here with some very interesting characters, a very creative story and plot to it that made for an interesting thing to watch because you're trying to piece it all together and figure out exactly how it happened, who did it, and why they did it, and that was a lot of fun. And while I didn't quite get it accurate on my first viewing, I still enjoyed watching it quite a bit. The reason that I rank it only at number 10 though is because it does tend to be a little bit slow in my opinion in the first half of the movie, but once you get to the point where the murder actually happens, it really picks up and it's really quite interesting from there on, and it makes for a very entertaining time that I highly recommend.
So cute! Am I doing it? Stop! You're gonna give yourself a hernia.
In 9th place is going to be Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Now, this is a movie that I was not excited for this year. I'd seen the trailers that I didn't think were all that impressive. It's been who knows how long since the first Puss in Boots came out. I've only ever seen that movie once, wasn't a big fan of it. So going into this one, I was not excited, but it really was quite a blast. In fact, I believe it is the best animated film of this year. In fact, I think that DreamWorks is the only studio that's really given us very solid animated adventures this year with this one and The Bad Guys. They were both quite enjoyable. But this one really just, it brought back the same feeling that I would get watching Shrek 1 and Shrek 2. It's not as good as either of those, but it kind of has more of that tone in comparison to some of the previous installments that we've gotten in the franchise prior to this one. The animation style was great, there was a lot of adventure to it, a lot of action, a lot of comedy, and the big standout for me was actually the villain of the film, who I thought was quite frightening and unexpectedly good, and you almost get a little bit terrified when he actually shows up on screen. So it was a great movie, I really enjoyed it, and here's hoping for Shrek 5.
The greatest show on earth.
In 8th place is going to be Elvis. Now, I'm a big fan of real stories and watching the characters and stories of people who are actually alive, especially big popular people such as Elvis Presley. And this movie really did that for me. It gave us a very interesting story. I got to learn a lot more about him and things that I really didn't know beforehand. But the thing that really sold this film and made it as good as it was is Austin Butler's performance. He gave one of the best performances of the year. You could tell that he really got into that character and that he delivered and gave his all in every single scene that he was a part of. He's really the whole reason for why this film is in the top 10, because his performance was just so amazing.
Whoa, okay!
In 7th place is going to be The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. This is a film that just kind of had everything. It was funny, it had action, it had adventure, it had drama, it was all about family. It was a very, very good film with a lot of different things to it. It was a nice tribute to Nicolas Cage, who I'm a big fan of. I really like a lot of his films. He did a wonderful job in this movie, both playing himself as well as kind of playing a character of himself. It was kind of interesting, a lot of fun how they handled that. Him and Pedro Pascal worked really well together on screen. They made for a fun little buddy duo, and it led to some funny scenes, and I really enjoyed this movie. It came out a little bit earlier this year, and even since the beginning, it's always been in my top 10. Loved it, and I highly recommend it. In 6th place, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, which was a film released on Netflix this year. It's a foreign film, actually, and it was really well done. I love war films. I love being placed into this history and kind of learning a little bit more about it there. And World War I in particular is one that we don't see quite as often, and I thought that they did a fantastic job. Everything about it just felt like a lot of good quality. The actors did a good job. The characters felt meaningful and real. The conflicts felt engaged in, and the look of everything felt brutal and realistic, and I really, really liked that about this film. It gets a little bit slower at some parts. They go into more the diplomatic side of things as they're coming to the end of the war, and those will be interesting, but they're not nearly as entertaining as some of the more action-centered, out in the trenches scenes that you get. So a lot of fun as a movie overall, one that you can watch on Netflix right now, and I definitely recommend that you check it out.
Anyone got an accordion?
Like a surgeon, hey, getting for the best.
What can I say? I'm full of surprises.
And coming into our top 5, we have Weird, the Al Yankovic story. This movie was basically exactly what the title said you were going to get. It's just weird. It's like a parody, but at the same time, it's not a parody. It has a mix of things that are true about Al, while at the same time having things that are completely made up and completely just blown away crazy. And it's just so much fun, and it's funny. And I think that Danny Radcliffe did a wonderful job playing him. He really delivered on this film. And so it was a movie that I was excited for when I saw the trailers. And when I went and saw the movie, it went nothing like how I had actually expected it to go. But at the same time, it gave me so many things that I loved. It's just purely entertaining. It's such a good time. Probably the best comedy of the year. Actually, I would argue it definitely is the best comedy of the year. And it's well worth watching.
Whoa! This guy's crazy!
In 4th place, we have The Batman. Now, I was very excited for this movie when I went to go see it. I've obviously seen a lot of Batman movies, and I wanted to kind of see how they were going to do things differently, especially following the Ben Affleck version of Batman, who I actually quite enjoyed. And I wanted to see what Robert Pattinson was going to bring to the character, and they really did a wonderful job with this film. I liked the fact that they emphasized the detective side of things, more so than what we've gotten in any of the other films. It felt like a crime mystery, and I enjoyed that. Basically, every single character in this film has their moments to shine. Every single actor did a wonderful job. You can talk to so many different people, and they all have different opinions on who the star of the show was and who the best performance was, and that's something that I loved about it. It had a very interesting story that kind of had you guessing and trying to figure things out. It had some good action when the action did come, and I also liked the fact that the action was not really the center of this movie. There was some action, it was good, but it was less than what you get in other Batman movies, so it was fun to see them aim more towards the detective. And then you have my favorite thing about this film, and that is actually the city of Gotham itself. To me, this is the best Gotham that we have seen in any of the Batman films. It just felt real, it felt lived in, it felt like it belonged to the story, that it was part of the narrative going along, and really that it was kind of like a character in and of itself, and I can't wait to see what new stories this Gotham is going to bring for us in the future. In third place, we have Prey, and this is easily the most unexpected film for me this year. This is the biggest surprise of 2022, as I'm a big fan of the original Predator film, but I don't really like any of the films following it. And so going into this one, I'd seen the trailers, they looked pretty decent, but I didn't really know exactly what I was going to be getting, and this film had me just blown away from every scene. It felt intense, it felt violent, it felt just real and crazy, and it's the type of alien movies that I like, where the alien shows up and you have to take it on. Something like Nope that came out this year gave us a little bit of a more unique look at the aliens, and that was fun, but something like this that was just your classic Predator. He's just showing up, he's just hunting, and he's killing everybody, and he kills some people in some very creative ways in this film. The action scenes were just awesome to watch. It really is just a blast. It's a quick film to watch too. It wasn't very long, and I loved it. And the best thing about this film was actually the ending of it as well. They kind of do this sort of final fight between the Predator and the main character, and it was well done. I liked the way of how they handled her taking on the Predator. It felt smart, it felt like it was believable, and it was just an awesome way to take down the Predator.
Is our fortress.
Our runner-up is going to be Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, like many of you, I was a little bit unsure about this film going into it. Not that I thought that it was going to be bad, as James Cameron really has never made a bad film, so I was expecting that it was going to be a good movie, but I was a little bit unsure if it was going to be worth the 13 years that it's been since we got a James Cameron film. And it really is. I wouldn't say that this is the best James Cameron movie I've ever seen, but I did think that it was an improvement on the first film, and that it told a more in-depth story, and that it was more meaningful. I loved the focus that it gave on families. There have been a lot of people I've heard who've kind of complained that it is a little bit of a simple story, and that's true. It's not like it's telling anything that you haven't really heard before, or isn't really unique and grand, but it's told in such a meaningful way that I just loved it. I came to love the characters of the film, their relationships with each other, to the point where it actually got fairly emotional for me at some points. And then you have, on top of all of that, it's just a visual masterpiece. It is one of the best looking films that we've gotten in a long time, and I loved every single second that I was watching the screen. I mean, even if it's no speaking, even if there's nothing going on, all you're doing is watching it visually, the film's just a blast. It is so good. James Cameron did a wonderful job, and I was unsure if I was going to be excited for the future of this Avatar franchise, but after seeing the second one, I'm very much excited to see what comes in Avatar 3.
But not today.
Our top film of the year, however, is going to be Top Gun Maverick. This was the first film that I saw this year that really blew me away. I remember just coming out of the theater, and I remember talking to my family, and they were all very impressed with this movie. Visually, it's just so cool to watch, where Avatar kind of focused on the digital effects, this one really gave us some amazing visual effects and the way that they actually used the airplanes. It had outstanding action scenes, and it was just so much fun to watch from start to end. And also it had a nice story to it. Again, kind of like Avatar, it's a little bit of a simpler story, but it's told in a way that really helps to bring out the rest of the film, and it's done with good characters and good performances. And so overall, I really don't have any negatives with this film, and it was also one that I was really quite surprised by because I'm not a big fan of the original Top Gun. I like it, but it's not one that I'd ever talk about a lot, and this film is the complete opposite. I mean, this is one that I want to talk about all the time. Ever since I saw it, it's been at the top of my list for the movies, and nothing was able to quite top it, though Avatar came close. It's just an amazing movie, and it's one that I recommend everybody should check out. Whether or not you like the first Top Gun movie, this one is going to be worth seeing because it is just amazing. So that's going to finish up my ranking of the top 10 films of 2022. Do you guys agree with me? If not, let me know down in the comments what your favorite films are. I'd love to see what it is that you enjoyed from the previous year. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to look forward to more reviews coming in 2023.